also establish the parameters and the structure by which you go forward for any special use permit. So in so doing, I've met with Neil Halloran and a couple of the other consultants, Dennis Lindsay, et cetera, as to input, and we pretty much, and again, this may be somewhat biased, but it's been determined, as far as I'm concerned, that the attorneys, planning board, and myself need to establish the framework, because as you know, we have so many delicate issues going on at the present time, litigation and otherwise, which this will affect, because again, it involves a PAC and the initial special permit, if you will. So we want to be consistent, and we want to develop a criteria which the court feels comfortable with going forward, and again, the template formula for which to use in the future. We haven't finalized it yet, but I do expect, right after the holidays means Thanksgiving, to be able to be in a position to finalize all the thoughts, and so that it will be submitted to the board for future consideration, so we can move not only on this project, but on any other special use permit which may come before you.
Good. Thank you, Dennis. And the public, we had this applicant come in with their attorney. I'm sorry. Well, I guess their
attorney and
engineer to explain to us what the concept was, and we've discussed it as a board since then. And so I don't think we need any additional information. We just need to make a determination and then communicate accordingly.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Under new business, I'd like to ask someone on the board to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to process a 211 waiver request made by the police chief, Dennis Marsh. This goes to the Civil Service Department Board of Defense Benefits and Pensions, and I'd like to explain why we're doing this. I first got involved with this back in 2006. When you use a retiree to fill a job that others in an organization can aspire to get promoted into, you have to process what they call a waiver, a 211 waiver. And what this waiver says is you've done due diligence and you can find nobody to fill this job within the ranks of that particular profession who's an employee. And so therefore you're allowed, in those days, it was a 2-year period for this 211 waiver. So we did that back in 2006. And for those who are around, there's quite a bit of posturing on this. But we did what the law required. We went out and solicited and advertised and this and that, only to find out at the conclusion of all that work that we did that you can't select anybody unless they're on a chief level B testing by the Orange County Civil Service Group. And so anyway, we didn't have a level B chief's list. So then last year, and anyway, he got a 2-year waiver, and we did it again. Well, this time, rather than doing all that work, I just shortchanged it, and I wrote him a letter. I said, listen, since we don't have a list maintained in the county, I'm not going through all this. I request this 211 be approved as presented. And they did another year. So then it's up again, and so I wrote a letter again to the Board of Benefits and Pensions, and they wrote me back and said, no, you have to go out and solicit and advertise and interview and so forth. So I called them, and they said, and I said, we don't have a list in the county. They're going to do some testing in the spring, but right now we don't have a list. They said, oh, okay. So anyway, but they said, what I have to do is this is a new change of theirs. I have to get permission from the board through a motion to authorize me to send this 211 back. So that's kind of where it's at. So if someone on the board would make a motion to authorize the supervisor to forward Chief Dennis Marsh's application for a 211 waiver to the Department of, or actually the Civil Service Department Board of Benefits and Pensions.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
So now what takes place?
We will,
the waiver up.
the waiver's there already, the request. I will fax tomorrow a copy of this motion, and they have everything they need. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And by the way, all that came about when I talked to this fellow in Albany is out on Long Island about a year ago or more, in the school system, there were some attorneys who were private enterprise.
I know,
were somehow on the school payroll, and they applied for a pension after so many years. And there was a kind of a, I won't say a loophole in the law, but a loophole in the understanding and all this kind of business, because actually they were getting two pensions at the same time, one in the law firm and one in the school system. So they passed a law in October of 2008, and then that clarified lots of things. And the spillover is, one thing is that we have to have a request in a motion from the town board or any board, and then the other thing is you've got to go out and solicit to get a backfill if you can. So that's kind of where it's at. All right. The next one under new business, 7 Larchwood Drive Town Action Review. This is one that's repeat each year, and this is we have a house there that in Arcadia Hills in 7 Larchwood, and the house has been abandoned, still owned by the people. And every year we go up and clean it up and make sure that the board is up tight and all that. So we've gone through all the processes to be authorized to do that and walk on the property. And so what we're going to be doing is boarding up the front door, painting it brown, cleaning up the yard, and then we're putting that on your tax bill. It's just a status review.
Just so the board's aware, that should be accomplished. I feel it will be this week through the holiday, but I'm sure it will be accomplished next week, because I know the supervisor pointed out that all the prerequisite notices that are going out, we're in the stage now where we can take the action. And it's not as drastic as years past, but nevertheless, as outlined, it involves weed whacking, cleanup of brush, etc., to a minimum extent, but certainly further bordering up around the house. It was boarded up at one time. Unfortunately, it must have been vandalized or accessed.
No, everything was boarded except the front
door
and or the doors. I think the windows were boarded,
correct,
but somehow they got through the door.
Yeah.
Or hallway or whatever it was. Okay. The Louis, you want to introduce the next one? You want me to do this on the?
Yeah, do it now.
Okay.
I'll give comments.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion we authorize the highway superintendent to put surplus equipment out for bid? Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just for the record, we did this a few months ago, but I think it didn't have all the equipment on it, so they stopped it, and he's redoing it so it goes out with the surplus used equipment. So I don't know if it was added, but it looks to me like mostly the same stuff that we approved about 2 months ago is on this list. Maybe the dump truck wasn't on, that old dump truck.
I don't think it was.
All right, so that's probably where the difference came. So he's just asking for us to approve it all over again. I don't think there's a need for me to read what's on here, but
Okay. Well, it's a Crown Victoria 2001, 1994 Chevy Kodiak. That's the dump truck. Gilbrado fuel pumps, 6-foot Alamo sickle bar mower, Ramsey winch, and some spreader boxes.
and just so you know that 2001 Ford Crown Victoria is an old police car that the highway department took and used for a while as a vehicle just to get around, pick up parts.
You're not throwing 1,000 miles out there.
No, and it ran fine.
I'll make sure it's a car now.
Okay.
Now, Steve, Steve put that in the paper.
About
I'll take that.
yes.